Members of the public, either in attendance or watching at home, welcome to this evening's planning committee. I will just run through some housekeeping rules. Should the fire alarm sound, please follow the lead of our officers and exit the building on their instruction and congregate where indicated at the front of the building so we can make sure that everyone is accounted for. Do not use the lifts, thank you. Please ensure mobile phones are either set to silent or switched off for the duration of the meeting. This meeting is being recorded and you may be visible on camera. So if this is an issue, please let one of the officers present know of your concern. For those sitting in the public gallery, can you please avoid leaning on the glass panelling for your own safety? Evacuation of council chamber. If any reason there is a need to evacuate the chamber, please follow the lead of our officers. Disturbance by members of the public. In accordance with the Constitution, if a member of the public interrupts the proceedings at any meeting, I will issue a warning. If the disruption continues, I shall order your removal from the meeting. Protocol for the meeting. I will now run through the protocol for member and public participation and the rules of debate. Please note that the Chair's ruling during the debate will be final. The planning officer will introduce the item relating to the planning application and summarise the main points. When the introduction has been completed, I will then invite members of the public who have registered to speak on an item to address the meeting. If you have registered to speak, I will introduce you by name and invite you to step forward. Please use the microphone. You will have 3 minutes and I will ask you to stop once your time has expired. Members of the committee will then be given the opportunity to ask questions or to clarify statements. The item will then be moved, seconded and debated before a vote is taken. We will now move on to the agenda. Agenda item 1, apologies for absences.
We have an apology from Councillor Ashall and Councillor Covett is here as substitute. Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item 2, minutes of the meetings held on 25th of June 25 and 9th of July 2025. You have the minutes from 25th of June and 9th of July in your pack. Do I have a proposer and a seconder, please, for the adoption of both sets of minutes? Councillor Elgin and...
Chair, I'd like to make a comment on that.
Okay.
Chair, thank you. I'd just like to make a comment on the minutes of the 9th of July. I would like to raise, with your indulgence, a matter of inaccuracy in these draft minutes. While I excuse myself from the meeting, having spoken against the proposal, as you're aware, I was able to observe the whole meeting on the live screen, and I also have a transcript of the conversation which took place. I'd like to refer to the section of the minutes where, during the debate, the legal officer advised the committee. There were 7 bullet points which are listed, and the 6th bullet point in this section is relevant. It was not a comment about why the growth towns could not take this sort of development. It was a direct question from Councillor Scott Brown. Councillor Brown's question is very clear in the transcript and was very pertinent to the debate and to the decision which was made. Councillor Brown asked officers very directly how much land is already allocated and is there available space within the growth towns to fulfil that requirement. The answer which was given by a senior planning officer did not answer the question. What it did was it pointed out that there was an available land supply estimated at 277 hectares, which are about 4 times the size of the proposal which was on the table at the time, still available on policy compliance sites within the growth area. The answer that the senior planning officer gave was, in fact, gave a different figure, which suggested that there was a supply of logistics land in the Semlep sub-region. Now, Chair, you will be aware that the Semlep sub-region covers both Northamptonshire's Bedfordshire in all its variety, Luton and Milton Keynes. So it's a sub-regional area. So that the answer to Councillor Brown's question was not really accurate, and it may have misled the committee. So essentially, the committee could have realised that there was a plentiful supply of land for B8 within Northamptonshire and within the area of the growth towns, and that provision had not been met, and it might have made a difference to the decision which was made. So I just would like to put that on the record, that the answer to the question was not quite an answer to the very pertinent question that Councillor Brown made. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll just take legals on this.
So just to clarify the point from my understanding, so the minute is correct in terms of the advice I gave at the meeting was to refer to a SEMLEP report, and that's what's written in the minutes. I think the comment you're making, Councillor Brackenbury, is that that was the wrong advice to give in the moment. But in terms of the minutes before the committee to agree, are you satisfied that the minutes reflect a true record of the discussion?
Well, from my listening to the discussion online and from the transcript, which I have, it would indicate that the minute is correct, but the answer to the question may have given a misleading impression to committee in the debate. So, while this has, I'm raising this as a question on the minutes, it is a more substantive question as to the decision that was actually taken.
Chair, Councillor Brackenbury, at this stage, when looking at the minutes, we just need to be looking at whether the minutes accurately reflect what was said on the night, as opposed to not what an understanding may or may not have been, or whether an answer was correctly given or not. Right? We can only, in looking at the minutes now, are the minutes as set out in the draft minutes on the agenda, do they accurately reflect what was said on the night?
Well, I guess, as I said, I think they probably do reflect, but I have, however, made the point, which is, I think, pertinent, and that point is on the public record, so I'm content, Chair.
Can I come back on it? Yeah. So that's the point I wanted to come back on. Thank you, Chair. So you've made a point in the point of the meeting where we're looking to agree the minutes from the last two meetings. You've made that point. There's no right of reply we can give as officers to that point in this moment, and there's no mechanism for us to do so. So we can't challenge that point if we wanted to do so, or agree with that point if we wanted to do so. So the challenge we now have is that in the minutes for this meeting, the comments you've made will be in the minutes because you've raised those as a question for the minutes. I believe the outcome of this point is you're happy with the minutes do correctly reflect what was said, but I think we also need to put a note in the minutes to say that no response has been given to your point, so that if in future the council is asked about this point, we have not actually given you a response on the point you've raised. We're not commenting on it in one way or other, and I think that should also be minuted, Chair.
Well, again, through you, Chair, thank you. I do agree with you, and I do understand the position that you're in. However, the point, as I say, has been raised and may be discussed at another time in another forum. But thank you.
Thank you, David, for that. So we agreed that the minutes are accurate. So I will move for a vote now. A show of hands, please. What was the? Yeah. Okay. That's all been carried, and we'll move on to. Item 3. Members, can I ask you to confirm that you're coming to the meeting with an open mind, that you have not predetermined the application before you? Can I ask if anyone has visited the site listed on the agenda? And finally, does anyone have a declaration that you wish to make, please? If you could state the item, nature of the interest, and whether it is disclosable pecuniary interest or non-statutory interest, that would be helpful. Thank you, members. Okay, so we'll move on to item 4 then. Application NE-24-01-169-FUL, 69 Wellingborough Road, Rushden. It is recommended that the application is approved subject to the conditions set out in section 11 of this report, including any amendments to those conditions deemed necessary. I'll now hand over to James Patterson to present, please.
Thank you, Chair. So just to start off, I'd just like to draw members' attention to the written updates, which contains a late consultation response, which proposes an additional informative should planning permission be granted. Officers are recommending that this would be included in any granted planning permission. I also have a brief verbal update whereby officers seek to remove condition 4 from the recommendation, which relates to the dropped curb. This is so as to not interfere with the pedestrian crossing across Wellingborough Road. The application relates to a dwelling house on Wellingborough Road within the urban area of Rushden, as shown outlined in red on the map on the screen. The dwelling was formerly in use as a church, but was converted into a dwelling in approximately 2002. The building has since fallen into a state of disrepair, as will be evident in the site photos later on in the presentation. The site is surrounded by residential uses to the south and west, while an estate agent abuts the site to the east. To the north is Wellingborough Road and the associated roundabout, which forms a significant junction in the town. The town centre is a 5-minute walk from the site, approximately 250 metres to the northeast. The application seeks full planning permission for a change of use of the dwelling to a 9-bed large house in multiple occupation, so HMO, which falls within use class sui generis. This application follows a refused planning application for a 12-bed HMO on the site, which also included new side dormers. That application was refused on the basis of lack of sufficient occupier amenity, harm to neighbouring amenity, unacceptable car parking arrangements, and the impact of the development on the Upper Neen Valley Gravel Pits Special Protection Area. This application proposes an amended scheme which seeks to address these reasons for refusal. So we'll go through the plans. So as you can see, a proposed site plan here. So we've got an existing floor plan. The main thing to note is that there's an outbuilding here which would be removed, as you'll see in the upcoming plans. Existing elevation plan. So this is the front elevation. And we've got a proposed floor plan here. Again, proposed elevation plan. This is a proposed cycle parking. So as you'll see on the plan here, cycle store would be just to the side of the building here, allowing access out of the side passage onto the highway. And we've got proposed boundary plan. So this came in as an amendment which proposes means of enclosure around the site. This is in response to car parking issues. So as obviously is made clear in the report, the fence is intended to prevent car parking on the site. Move on to site photos. So we've got the front of the dwelling. I think these are quite self-explanatory, so I shall whiz through them. So that's the estate agent just there. So it's the internal view of the dwelling, currently undergoing some refurbishment. view out of the ground floor window looking west. So this is the outbuilding that's proposed to go. This is a photo of the dropped curb, so the existing informal access to the site. So this is an aerial plan which helps illustrate the context of the land subject to this application. Planning officers consider that proposed development would comply with the policy set out on the development plan, would sufficiently address the reasons for refusal associated with the previous 12-bed HMO application, therefore subject to the conditions set out in the officer report as amended by the verbal and written updates. Officers recommend that this application is approved. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, James. I have received 4 requests to speak, and the first person I'd like to call up is Mr. Peter Brady. I think you're in. You've got to go to the middle desk.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to speak this evening, especially at short notice. So as discussed, I'm Peter Brady. I'm one of the adjacent neighbours, and I'm here to register my objections and those of some of my neighbours and local businesses. And this is broadly based around 3 points. The first one remains the concerns around overdevelopment and population density. This is a building which was previously a 2-bedroom dwelling, which sits on a plot which is actually smaller than that which my 3-bedroom house occupies if you include the amenity space. The proposal is to put 9 individuals in here as permanent residents. There's obviously a reasonable expectation that there may be also visitors there, so we could see a situation where you routinely have 10 or more in this building. This represents, I believe, overdevelopment and also will put a significant strain on my quality of life and that of my neighbours. It's reasonable to expect that, especially in warm weather, individuals would want to associate in the outside areas, one of which was shown in those pictures, the boundary of which ends less than 5 feet, so 5.5 feet linear distance from one of my bedroom windows. This would lead to problems with noise, problems with smells, including people smoking and vaping, people socialising in general. We have concerns around issues around waste management and specifically the accumulation of 9 people's worth of waste, which will be removed once every fortnight. There is a watercourse that runs down the boundary of my property on the other end. We have a problem with rats habitually, and that building has had an infestation before, so that is a specific concern for myself and my neighbours. But just generally the impact on local amenity and local facilities that this represents. The next one is impact on community character. So nationally, HMOs are associated with antisocial behaviour. Nationally, they're associated with impacts on people's quality of life. I noticed in the planning recommendation the use of the term acceptability is used a lot to describe things like impact on quality of life, noise, and the like. But that's an abstract concept. For me and my neighbours, it's a reality that we'll have to live day to day, and it's something we're very concerned about, that this will impact us and our long-term willingness to remain residents of the area. And my immediate neighbour on the other side has already sold his house on the basis of this application, which is a great shame because he's been there for 47 years. The final point I'd like to raise is around parking and traffic impacts. So the mitigation for the lack of parking provided on site is local municipal car parks and parking on adjacent roads. The local municipal car parks, there's no guarantee they will remain as such, and so the fallback plan, should they be sold off in future, would be then to push those cars onto St Mary's and St Margaret's Avenue. This was reflected very strongly in the objections from other neighbours in the area who felt that the parking beat survey was conducted at a time that is not representative of the true parking situation, and this means that situations, especially on St Margaret's Avenue, where emergency services vehicles cannot make their way up unimpeded, would be compounded by that directly. I think that's probably all I have to say. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much, Peter. Have the members got any questions of clarity?
Thank you.
No questions? No? Okay, thank you very much, Peter. Next speaker, could I call up Councillor David Coleman, please? Thank you, David. You have 3 minutes.
I'll reiterate our prime concerns regarding this development submitted at the consultation stage. As site knowledge and having taken note of the justifiable concerns of residents, we feel planning issues haven't been addressed in this revised application. Policy H4 of the Rushden Neighbourhood Plan relating to the type and mix of housing, with new proposals being required to provide a balance of size and types to meet market demands, not been addressed. It states that development of this nature should be resisted unless it has otherwise been demonstrated to meet identified local need. Rushden has had an unhealthy overdevelopment of flats. Paragraph 3.18 of the Neighbourhood Plan recognises that the town already has a high percentage of flats and similar developments which is above the level within the wider district. There is increasing emphasis on HMOs, and our residents are rightly concerned with the potential issues these raise. They hold a certain stigma, although in the right location and with the right scheme they have a place within our community. No evidence of local need has been submitted by the applicant. Space standards are met, but the proposal remains overdevelopment with substantial intensification. Provision of residential amenity proposed is unacceptable. Policy EN1 of the Neighbourhood Plan relates to design in development and again requires provision of an appropriate outdoor amenity space. Only where this has been demonstrated would a proposal be supported by Policy EN1. This application in its revised form remains contrary to this policy. Policy EN11 of the Part 2 Local Plan also requires accessible and designed proportionate amenity space, but we consider provision here wholly inadequate, and pointing to the availability of nearby public outdoor amenity space is not acceptable. We also have serious concerns regarding highways impact. The Council's Parking Standards SPD states that HMOs should provide on-block parking at the ratio of 1 parking space per bedroom. The proposal does not meet this standard. We do not believe residents will not have cars, and indeed, how could this proposal be enforced? Highways. If the drop curve is reinstated, how do mobility scooters and similar cross Wellingborough Road to the traffic island near the roundabout? Double yellow line restrictions are in evidence on surrounding streets. Therefore, section 5.3.1 of the officer's report, referring to the applicant's June 2024 parking beat survey, indicating that sufficient capacity in surrounding streets is discredited. We would hope further pressure on our public car parks was limited. We also have issues with waste vehicles obstructing the roundabout exit. Highway safety issues should not be taken lightly, and this proposal gives rise to grave concerns. Please take on board our real concerns and those of our residents in your deliberations.
Thank you very much, David.
Thank you.
If you could just wait there for a second. Members, any questions of clarity? No. Take your seat then, David. Thank you very much. I will now call Councillor Ashall to speak. Ash, you've got 5 minutes.
I won't need 5 minutes. Okay, Chair, members of the committee. I speak today as the elected councillor for Pemberton Ward and as the voice of many residents who have objected strongly and with good reason to this application. The proposal to convert a former 2-bedroom dwelling into a 9-bedroom HMO is in plain terms overdevelopment. It would impose an unacceptable level of intensity on a plot that was never designed for this scale of occupation. Residents have rightly raised serious concerns, and so have I, about the complete lack of off-street parking. The suggestion that John Street car park can absorb demand is misleading. That site operates on a maximum 24-hour stay basis, is not intended or suitable for long-term residential use. Meanwhile, St Mary's Avenue, St Margaret's Avenue and Wellingborough Road are already under pressure with double yellow lines, tight bends and existing parking conflict. We've heard accounts of near misses, vehicles blocking driveways. These are not abstract risks, they are clear and present highway safety issues. The applicant's claims that residents won't own cars or that parking won't be a problem are not supported by any evidence. And as councillors, we're advised in our training that assumptions without evidence carry no weight in planning decisions. While the rooms proposed may technically meet minimum national space standards, that doesn't in itself justify development of this scale or intensity in this particular location. Planning isn't just about ticking boxes, it's about whether a proposal safeguards amenity, safety and the long-term character of the area. There are also equalities and access issues. Residents have raised the fact that parked vehicles already obstruct pavements, making it dangerous for wheelchair users, prams and pedestrians. This development would make that worse. The proposed waste storage is also inadequate. The application provides just one set of bins, one for general waste and one for recycling, for 9 adult occupants. With no rear access, the bins will be stored at the front of the property, which is not only unsightly, but will also lead to extra waste and hygiene issues. The planning report itself says this falls short of what is reasonably required, and the Waste Services team hasn't even been consulted. That alone should be grounds for refusal. This application is also inconsistent with the Rushden Neighbourhood Plan, in particular Policy H4, which seeks to resist high-density or flatted development unless a clear local need can be demonstrated. Rushden already has 50 HMOs, 21 licensed, most housing 5 or 6 people. This application for 9 adults goes well beyond the norm, and no evidence has been given to show this level of provision is needed. The plan also emphasises the importance of safeguarding residential amenity and ensuring new development respects the existing character of the area. This application is not about solving a house in need, it is an attempt to squeeze the maximum number of rent-paying tenants into a small space with minimum consideration for safety, infrastructure or neighbour amenity. We've seen a very similar proposal here refused last year. Nothing material has changed and the reasons for refusal remain just as relevant, if not more so. The adverse impacts clearly outweigh any minor benefit of this scheme. I urge the committee to support local residents, uphold policy and refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Ash. If you just want to stay there for a second. Any questions of clarity? Okay, you may take your seat, Ash. Next, we have Mr. Oliver McLaughlin, if you'd like to come up. You have 3 minutes, Oliver.
I've got the notes written on my phone. I press this button. Yeah. Now it's on. Okay. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm here to apply for the planning permission for the 9-bed HMO in Rushden. I want to make very clear this is not your typical HMO. This property has been empty for years. Despite being converted to residential use back in 2002, it's an awkwardly shaped building that doesn't suit a typical family layout. What we've done is to redesign the internal layout to maximise the space, but while still having a high quality living environment. Each room is typically about 25% bigger than the minimum standards, so it's definitely not high concentration. Concentrate on modern finishes. Each room has its own ensuite. We take great pride in what we do. We've built a big reputation in Northamptonshire for our projects. We've featured on Homes of the Hammer. We've got over 2,000 people that follow us on Instagram who admire the high standards that we're setting. So we're just not like any other sort of HMOs out there. I know they have a bad stigma. We manage the properties ourselves, and I want to make it absolutely clear. We won't have any sort of bad people in. We won't give it to a third party or anything like that. There's a huge increasing need for affordable and flexible housing options in towns like Rushden. With rising rents and a shortage of single-person accommodation, the cost of living continues to climb. Many working professionals and key workers simply can't afford their own flats. This type of high-quality HMO gives them a chance to live in a comfort without overstretching themselves financially. As concerns about parking, we had a parking beat survey, which clearly shows there's ample on-street parking for 46 spaces. which is more than enough, and it's also within a 5-minute walk to the town centre. It's widely recognised in our industry that the tenants in HMOs are less likely to drive, so typically probably around 25%. I don't have the evidence for that, but I've been in this industry for about 15 years of just renting HMOs, so I know quite a bit about it. How are we doing on time? What's the time? I'm okay.
You've got about 20 seconds.
Oh, okay. That's all right. I finally just want to stress that this proposal does not involve the loss of any family home. This building has been empty for years, and quite simply, it's not suited to traditional family living. What we're doing is bringing back... Sorry? Oh, is that time? Okay, sorry. Thank you. Oh, yeah.
Just stay there for a second, yeah. Any members for clarity questions? Jonathan?
So you said that you would make sure that there were good tenants that would be moving into the property. How will you vet the tenants?
So it's quite a stringent process. So there is there's checks. We have the bank statements. We make sure that they can afford it. We have good conversations. I think the best way to vet a tenant, rather than all the other ways there are doing it, there's credit checks and things like that we can put in place. But it's just to have a really, I know it sounds stupid, but it's a really good conversation. And that's something that letting agents don't typically do. Because we manage our own, it means that we can vet them in a way that we see as the most common sense approach. So we find out their backstory, we find out why they're coming to the area, if they're not already in the area, or what's happened, have they separated from partners, what's the situation. So we really go into the nitty-gritty of why they're looking to move into this place and what their long-term goals are. So we have a much further conversation. Also, we ask for a full month's deposit, which is something that typically other HMOs and operators do. So we have, so they're much better for it. So I hope that answers.
Councillor?
Yeah. You mentioned that you're not a typical HMO.
Yes.
Could you tell me in which way you're non-typical, please?
Can I tell you about a non-typical?
Why you're non-typical?
So I focus a lot in how tenants would use the space. So typically in a HMO, they're confined to their room. So we make the rooms as best places as they can do. They're all furnished. We do them to a really high standard. Think about it like a hotel room. You walk in and if you go on a trip or something and you go to a hotel and it's a really nice fancy hotel, you want to take a picture of it. You might send it to your friends. This is where I'm staying. That's how we kind of operate. So they're really, really high standard rooms. They're all furnished. And we also, and this has been not mentioned, we have a really good space standard here. So we've got really big communal kitchen, lounge, diner, etc. We've got it. I think the minimum spec is 19 square meters. Ours is 36. The minimum requirement for bedrooms is 8. And we've got rooms up to 23 square meters. So we haven't been sort of just cramming them in as maybe suggested. We haven't done that. This is a huge building, and we just we can. I mean, we did have an application for 12. We've now gone down to 9. So it means each room is bigger, is more ample. So I hope that answers the question. Also, they're managed by us. That we don't ever have it managed by someone else.
David?
Thank you, Chair. The report at 7.4.6 says that the waste management arrangements would remain the same as the existing, which is acceptable in terms of bin location and drag distance. And I know that some of the public speakers raised that issue. It goes on to say that if existing waste collection arrangements are not adequate, then it would be the landlord's responsibility to ensure a commercial contract is in place. Have you got any comments on that? And I've got one other question after that, if I may, Chair.
Yeah. So in properties where it doesn't quite work, we have waste removal companies that can go in and take any excess. We've also got cleaners that go in every week to make sure that there's no build-up. If it ever was to get to the situation where it would, it's just not sustainable, we would get a regular contractor in, and we do have that at some of our other HMOs, so there would never be any problem. Also, with the licensing, this is all managed as well. We can't just flout the rules and have a build-up. We're managed ultimately by the HMO regulations, and so there is a point of call if any neighbours or anything had an issue, they can speak to the council, and ultimately we'll lose our licence if we don't have the appropriate ways of managing the waste.
So you would monitor the waste arrangements, as well as the general condition of the premises at all times. You would constantly
so we have weekly cleaners which will go in, make sure that the entire place is clean. They also have a responsibility to report to us any issues or in terms of environmental health.
David, did you want your second question?
Yeah, indeed. Also, in the report, there is a fallback position which is highlighted in that there is the possibility of permitted development for up to 6 occupants of a house in multiple occupation. Now, obviously I don't want to prejudice the discussion on the application that you have made, but do you have any comment about what would happen if this application was turned down, and whether you would be content to go with the 6?
David, you're going a little bit on clarification, so...
Okay. All right, sorry, thank you.
Gordon? Yes, I did. Okay. Ben?
Thank you, Chair. I was just curious about the parking arrangements, really. I note there's quite a large garden area at the front of the building, which is currently just grass. Take it that's not being used as parking space from what I can read here. And I was just wondering why that's the case. Is it highways, or is it a decision you've made?
Yeah, it was a bit frustrating, really, because ultimately it can fit 4 cars, sort of like that. But in consultation with highways, despite it looking like it's got evidence of parking in the past with the drop curb, etc., they said because of the proximity of the roundabout, they would prefer us not to have that. So it's a bit of a shame. Obviously, we would like to have on-site parking, but in this it's just not possible with the highways. So we conducted the parking beat survey. They said that there's 46 spaces. With its proximity of being so close to the centre, you can walk to the centre. I also just want to highlight, I know this is deep in the slide, but the high street, I think we need to have people that live within the city centre, within the town centres, that have the ability to walk to the local shops. That not necessarily get in their car and go to the Rushden Lakes, that actually will shop in the town centre and support the local businesses.
Gordon?
You say your rooms are all larger sized?
Yeah.
Are they all single occupancy or couples?
Yeah, that's a very good point. They're all single occupancy. We don't rent to any couples. There's a number of reasons of why, but ultimately it is restricted to just one person per room. They all have their own en-suites. There's no arguments about who's hogging the shower or the toilet or anything like that. So, and all the sizes, just as a side point, all the sizes that we've got on the plan exclude the sizes of the en-suites. So, if you were to include the size of the en-suites, they'd be even bigger. Yeah.
Darren?
How are you approaching fire?
Fire. So it's quite quite a simple one with this one. They've all got a safe access all the way out. Is in every door of the bedrooms. They've all got fire doors. They've all got they've all got self-closing closers, and it's straight out. They either go straight outside around and out, or they go straight out the front door. Also, all the windows on the ground floor, they can exit via those as well. But the primary escape is straight out. It's always all be up to building control code as well.
Ben?
Thank you, Chair. Cycles provision. I note on here it says that there's space for 10 cycles, but the 3D render has 6. Okay. I was just wondering, is it for 10 cycles or is it for? Yeah,
I'm not sure.
6?
I'm not sure on that one, but there will be a cycle for everybody there. Yeah.
So there'd be a cycle store for 10?
Yes, 10. It may well have been that it's 2 times what you saw. We might be able to see that on the plan. So it'll probably be 2 times of that. You buy them in like set pieces that you can put the bikes on. So there'll be 2 of those. Just quickly back on the fire. Sorry, all has interlinked smoke alarms. If one of them goes off, they all go off. So it is a slightly improved fire system in regards to the smoke alarm system as well. It's not just means of escape.
Horace?
My question is, how are you going to deal with the outside spaces around the building and not upsetting your local neighbours?
In regards to noise?
Noise, in the summertime, they're going to want to have barbecues. You've got a resident right next door to some of the open space, and he's not going to want to have someone having a barbecue right outside his window, is he?
Okay. Good point. I don't know if we can get the plan up, but there's sort of a left and right of the building. So the amenity space is on the left-hand side, which is largely neighbouring the commercial building next to us. On the right-hand side, that's only for emergency escapes only. If there is any noise like that, it should be quite mitigated.
Yeah, should we put it up for a second?
Sorry, we're just going to bring up the plan so you can demonstrate that point you just made.
Sorry, Chair, I'll just be a minute.
That one. Yeah. So I don't know which neighbours are which that may be here today, but on the left-hand side there, that's the commercial building, and so the garden space is mainly there. You see the bifold doors just below. So that's where the main amenity space is. So there's a neighbour at the back above, kind of thing, but that's the only neighbour, and that's kind of the narrower bit of the amenity space. So if there was any gathering or anything like that, it would be where the patio bit is and the main the bulk of the garden space. I will stress as well that they're not students. That would be like, it's not a university town, is it? So we're not going to have like this. A bunch of people partying or anything like that.
We just need to make sure we're just answering the questions now. Thank you. Not going off.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I've just got a query on access to that rear amenity space and the cycling storage.
Yeah.
How do you get access there? Have you got rights to an external walkway or?
So on the left there is. You mean like how to get to the amenity space from within the building or outside?
It more relates to the cycles, getting the cycles onto the road.
On the left bit there there's it's so big and tall, I can't see. But on the left there's a door. That's just a gate there. I don't know if you've got a pointer thing, but on the far left at the bottom you'll see a little door. That's a gate. So you can exit and enter via that. You might see it on the frontal plan as well, of like the live photo. You'll see it.
Okay, so they don't need to take their bicycles through the dwelling?
Yeah, you won't need to take them through or anything like that. It's you just use the side access. If you go to the picture, that's it there. Oh, yeah, go back one, that one. On the left-hand side, you can see there's a door there. Slightly hidden, but there is a door there. There's a door on both sides. They're just gates. So they're already existing. They're already there. So it's quite a well, that showed one of them. That's the one on the right-hand side. So yeah, you can get out without. That would be one of my pet hates is going through it with a.
Okay, thank you. Paul.
Sorry, yeah. So what I'm reading in here that it says you're proposing a non-car development, but here we are talking about cars. So is it cars or not cars?
When you
okay,
sorry.
So here it proposes that the development will be a non-car development for people with no cars. But yeah, we're all having a conversation about cars.
Okay, yeah, sure. So most people that rent rooms, they're, by the very nature of them renting a low-cost form of living, they often don't actually have vehicles. They typically use public transport, etc. So the amount of cars that they may have, obviously, if one of our tenants gets a car or whatever, that's fine. They just won't be able to park it on the property. So because of that, we have a parking beat survey, which is showing that there's 46 on parking spaces on the road within a reasonable walking distance.
Okay, so that's on public roads.
Yes.
Not on a public car park.
Not in the car park. Whilst there is a large car park, as someone else has said, it can't be relied upon.
You can't guarantee that, yeah.
Yeah. So, but there are plenty of side roads that can be used as parking on the road and walking to the house.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? Okay, thank you. I'd like to take your seat.
Okay.
Come back to you, James. Would you like to follow up on any of that?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Obviously, it's been a long and fruitful discussion, so I won't go over everything, but I shall home in on some key points. I think the question of overdevelopment and number of occupants. So there'll be 2 regulatory functions limiting the number of occupants on the site to 9. So we propose a planning condition which limits the number of occupants to 9 people, and it's envisaged the HMO licence will parallel that. So they'll have to deal with the restrictions on the licence and planning. So they'd have to, basically there's two ways that's being enforced. So so they can't sort of have anyone extra on, otherwise they'll breach the conditions of their licence and the conditions of the any planning permission that may be granted. I think there's a few sort of more general points I think it's worth covering. So obviously members have obviously picked up on a lot of this and touched over it, but I think it's just worth reiterating, sort of as per the officer report, there is a legitimate fallback which does need consideration in the planning balance, and that's that they can go to 6 occupants without the need for any planning permission or consultation with the planning team. They could just change the use of that, and they'd still be subject to licensing, of course, but it wouldn't need consideration as a planning application. A few sort of comments have been made about HMOs and whether there's a correlation between HMOs and antisocial behaviour. I think I would just caution members in that consideration, in that there could be implications in terms of equality and sort of, prejudicing the consideration of the committee. Unfortunately, I didn't attach it as an appendix, but I do have a planning appeal for an HMO where the council raised these issues in its statement of case. I think it's only a couple of sentences, but I think it would be helpful if I read that out. So the inspector in this case, like I said, it's a change of use from single dwelling to HMO in Devon, I believe. He considered that although HMOs may involve a more intensive use than a single dwelling, for example, I have little substantive evidence that an HMO on site would create significantly more noise disturbance or antisocial behaviour than any other residential uses. So I think there's a few sort of things to consider there in terms of legislation around equality and so forth, but also that there are sort of established planning appeals and case law which basically says that unless there's specific evidence before committee, then there's no reason to consider that an HMO would be materially more difficult in that regard. So turning to waste management, I'd just like to point out to members that the Northants waste team were consulted. Draw members' attention to paragraph 5.11. They provided a very brief comment, but obviously I deal with the issue as Councillor Brackenbury pointed out in 7.4.6. And obviously just to reiterate the discussion had in the questions to the applicant, obviously the council will deal with one recycling bin and one general waste bin. Obviously the applicant will be required to keep the site in a good condition essentially, so whether that means if there is additional waste, which there may well be, they'll have to introduce commercial contracts, or obviously they mentioned that the property was cleaned on a weekly basis, whether excess rubbish would be moved then, but essentially it will be up to them to ensure that excess waste is dealt with. Obviously there's several regulatory functions the council has in terms of HMO licensing and environmental health legislation, where the council would be fully within its rights to enforce. Cycle parking, just to cover that one off, the indicative sort of cycle parking, I think it shows a shelter showing 5 cycles. I was under the impression they'd be basically there'd be 2 of them next to each other. And just to give members some comfort, we have condition 5, which specifically requires that cycle parking providing 10 bicycle parking spaces must be provided prior to first occupation as an HMO. If members feel it's appropriate, I could amend that condition to make it clearer, because obviously it refers to that plan, which obviously perhaps has a bit more ambiguity than originally thought. So I can amend that condition if members feel is appropriate. I think the last major thing that's been discussed is in terms of car parking. So obviously members have had a full discussion on this, but I think just to offer some clarity, I think the starting position is that this is a highly sustainable location. So in the legacy East Northamptonshire area, possibly one of the most sustainable locations in the district. Obviously within walking distance of bus stops, which offer services to various other towns where obviously goods, services and employment opportunities would be available. It's 5-minute walk, if that, to the high street, obviously with all of the associated goods, services and amenities. So realistically, occupants would have less need for car reliance, which is obviously the aim of the development plan and national policy. However, since the site doesn't fall within a controlled parking zone or any other formal measures of parking restriction, we have had to consider the possibility, what the impact would be if each occupant did have a car. So that's what the parking beat survey does. Worth noting that it does exclude St John's car park. Obviously that is a free car park at the moment, but the council may introduce charges, it may sell it, it may build houses on it, so that can't be relied on. It's not part of the public adopted highway. So that hasn't been considered in the parking beat survey. Ultimately, the parking beat survey follows best practice, and the local highways authority, who are the technical experts on this matter, have raised no concern about off-street car parking capacity. I think finally, just to cover off, because I know there was a few questions about the access to the site. My understanding is that cars have been parking on the site informally, i.e. without formal permission, hence informally. The issue is obviously that it's right next to one of the busier roundabouts in Rushden, and obviously there's an island just in front of it, so cars will have to basically enter from from the roundabout to get on the correct side of that island, and then pull off, which obviously other drivers probably won't be expecting. And also there's no space for cars to enter the site in forward gear, manoeuvre and leave the site in forward gear. So they'd either be holding up traffic reversing onto the land, or they'd be reversing out onto a major road, which obviously both have highway safety concerns. So I believe the local highways position of not objecting is on the basis that no parking will take place on the site. So we have introduced conditions. The dropped curb formed part of this strategy, but obviously on reflection, it's better to not interfere with the pedestrian crossing across the islands. So we have, as per the plans up there, introduced a boundary treatment. So there's a fence fronting the front of the plot, and we've removed permitted development rights, so they wouldn't be able to remove that fence without formal planning permission. Therefore, there's no way cars can physically access the site. I think that's it from me. Thank you.
So if I can, Chair, sorry. So just to confirm, we're not making any announcements about building housing on the car park. So the recommendation before the committee is to grant consent subject to the conditions in the published agenda paper, with the addition of an informative set out on your written update sheet and the deletion of condition 4 as per the verbal update of the officer. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, James, for your presentation. Thank you, Alex, for clarifying that. For the purpose of debate and in accordance with the Council's Constitution meeting procedure rules 19.2 and 19.21, I will move the recommendation at item 40 of the report. It is recommended that this application is approved subject to the conditions set out in section 11 of the report, including any amendments to the conditions deemed necessary and the additional informative detailed in the circulated committee update. Do I have a seconder? Sorry, there's one slight thing there. Is it this one?
Yeah, on the deletion of condition 4.
Okay, and recollection of condition 4. Do I have a seconder? Thank you very much. And right, members, I will ask you to debate this application. Ben?
Thank you, Chair. I've just got one small comment to make on condition item 5. I think there might be a small typo. It says at the moment the development shall be occupied until cycle parking has been provided, but I think it should say the development shall not be occupied until cycle parking has been provided.
Thank you. David?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Right, interesting one this, isn't it? First of all, I would like to thank the applicant for his very clear statement and, you know, the way that he answered the questions that were put to him. I think we've been here before, Chair, but certainly houses of multiple occupation are a valid part of a housing mix. And, you know, we have been debating various such applications, both in terms of planning policy and in terms of licensing, and sometimes in terms of areas where there are a number of houses of multiple occupation, which needn't concern us tonight. This particular application is interesting because, of course, the original application, if I'm correct, was partly refused on the basis, 7.5.6, it's partly refused on the basis that inadequate parking was proposed on the site. And now we're in a situation where no parking is proposed on the site whatsoever because of potential for highways conflict with the nearby roundabout. I do take the point that many users of houses of multiple occupation will not have their own vehicles, but I also do note that if people do in fact have vehicles, they will need to park somewhere on the street, and you know, there is not unlimited parking on the street in Rushden. Not going into any debate about the future of any current parking provision that we currently do have. The section on permitted development did interest me, as you noted a moment ago, Chair. There is the fallback position that they can have permitted development subject to licensing for an HMO of six people. I would be interested to know what if there is any identified local need, and as it doesn't seem to have come up in the report, clearly that isn't quite the case. It's not ideal. I'm not sure the amenity space is totally adequate, and I do sympathise with the neighbour whose window is very close to that amenity space. But again, balancing that, I understand that the property is not in good condition. It is being brought back to use. I am persuaded that the applicant does provide a superior standard of monitoring of the potential tenants. I'm a little bit concerned about about how deliveries and visitors will be handled, because of course with this complete lack of parking and a comparatively busy road outside, I do think that's still potentially an issue. However, it's very much a balance, but with the thought that you have permitted development for 6 occupants, I would say that the extra harm to neighbouring amenity and to the area in general by the addition of 3 tenants is outweighed by the fact that it seems fair enough to add that. So somewhat reluctantly, I think the balance swings in favour, and I will be voting in favour of the application.
Thank you for that, David. Anybody else like to add to that? Dennis?
Yeah, just going back to this thing about the parking. And you say that you're going to leave the drop curb as it is. I think to discourage any local, I suppose, or even the people that are in there from trying to drive a car up there, maybe that drop curb should be shortened just to take in the point where it crosses the road, rather than sort of, keep the longer one, which may encourage people at any time just to sort of drive up on that. And the other thing is, if you want to discourage people from parking in the front of it, maybe some sort of bollard system or something to make sure that people see that they can't anyway. Thank you.
James?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, if members are happy to do so, you could delegate authority for us to amend condition 4 rather than remove it to shorten the length the curb is dropped for. In terms of a bollard, that's a bit more tricky, but obviously we would need to discuss with the local highways authority whether that's feasible, and then we could potentially insert a Grampian condition. However, I think we would first need to discuss with the highways authority what their view would be on the matter. I shall let Alex come in here.
I'm going to violently agree, but with one minor change. So just to explain what we mean by delegate authority. So what we're saying is we want to understand how much space needs to be left to enable that dropped curb to serve its function of allowing safe access across that road. We don't have that measurement here this evening, so having delegated authority to go away means we can get some advice on what that measurement would be. On the point about the bollard, my nervousness is you'd be putting in 2 restrictions. So what's here is the front fence to stop people parking. What would the bollard do in addition to that? So my advice would be not to look at a bollard, but to we can look at the minimum distance for that drop curb area.
Yeah, can I just come back on that? When you look at the actual dropped part for people to cross the road, you can actually see it on Google Maps, the sizes of it roughly. So it's just to match the size to the middle island, and it goes across the other side of the road. So you can basically get an idea of what sort of length it is just from Google Maps.
Paul?
Yeah, sorry. I kind of agree that needs to be reduced down. Maybe some tactiles. You know, on a standard thing, that needs to be tactiles. And the proposal for that fence, that needs to be a substantial fence, not the sort of fence that you can just tear down and go park a car on. Simple as. Do you understand what I'm saying? Can we stipulate what kind of fence that is?
So we're just checking whether the fence details are already there. What I would say is that there's a balance. We don't want, we could have a fence that made it look like Fort Knox and could never be knocked down. But this is a very visible development with lots of passing footfall, so we want to get the right balance. And there is a condition in there to say that they can't remove the fence. So if the fence were removed, we would have powers as local planning authority to take some action. James?
Yeah, all I meant was as opposed to wooden posts, but like concrete posts, so that you can't just... You could still have a nice wee little fence, just concrete posts, as opposed to...
I've just reviewed the plans, and the front boundary treatment is proposed as a 1.2 metre high wall with railings atop it. So hopefully that will satisfy your point.
that does.
Thank you.
And as Councillor Brackenbury implied, I'm very concerned about when they're building it, lorries turning up, deliveries, etc. Right on that roundabout is a very big issue. If you have a 18-ton lorry turning up with a hi-ab booming stuff out, how are they going to get around that?
James? Thank you, Chair. So there's a couple of things there. So I don't think this development is of a scale where we'd usually condition a construction management plan or similar. And I think it's possibly worth pointing out as well that obviously they'll be refurbishing the property, and my view would be that it's unlikely to exceed refurbishment that might be quite typical of sort of average residential dwelling. And again, it's possibly also worth pointing out the fallback position of if they were going for 6, then they wouldn't need planning at all. So again, I think our position would be that it probably wouldn't be of a scale that would warrant significant measures. But I think it's something we could include as an informative just to make the applicant aware that we have concerns in this regard and to essentially take extra care.
Thank you.
Have you finished, Paul?
Yes. I was just waiting for my brain to catch up with what he said. No, joke.
Willie, did you want to say something? No? Scott?
Thank you, Chair. I'm looking at a Google Maps view of the property now, and I note that less than 10 foot away, the neighbour of this property has parking and access to parking, and it I would imagine have the same issues as what's been said about this property potentially having parking. I echo a lot of what my colleague Councillor Brackenby said about this application, and on balance I think I'm likely to vote in favour. However, I would be much more comfortable if there was on-site parking, and I believe that there could easily be provision for that. So I would like to propose that we remove the conditions 6 and 7 to allow them to have on-site parking. We've heard from the applicant that around about 25% of HMO occupants drive cars. I think we could have easily 2 or 3 parking spaces there and enable them space to turn around as their next door neighbour has, and that would probably provide enough parking for the residents and eliminate that fear of many of the objections with regards to parking.
Thank you, Scott. James?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, with regard to the drop curb, I think it's important that it stays, and I like the point about perhaps reducing the extent of that to discourage any people parking on the pavement there. Although a full height curb never properly discourages people anyway; they will drive up it. I think it's good to have sustainable use of this building, to make use of it rather than let it continue to be disused and perhaps go more derelict and attract squatters possibly and antisocial behaviour associated with that. So that's good use, and I like the provision of the space allowance for the occupants. See a lot of HMOs which are like rabbit hutches for the people to live in, and they don't have ensuite sanitary facilities. So that's it weighing in its favour. I'm reasonably satisfied that the site doesn't need any parking. The parking beat survey demonstrates that there is parking available on the streets, and there is currently the municipal parking car parks. So I'm not too concerned about that, and I also take that was noted that the entrance to the front space at the front is not ideal in relationship to the roundabout and the junction there, and also I believe there's a pedestrian crossing. Yeah. I think that's my main points on that. Thank you.
Thanks, James. Morris?
Yeah, I echo what Councillor Brown said about the parking. It's making me feel quite uncomfortable because, yeah, most people who need to get a decent job, every job's decent, but if they're working further away, they need transport sometimes, and it can be a handicap if you don't have the space to park. Or if we own St John's John Street car park, can't we try and rent out 2 spaces and just put bollards in a way so people can't use them without paying for the locals?
Don't really think that's planning to decide that, is it?
So the long answer is, if you wanted to do that, then we'd need agreement from the council. We'd need an undertaking in place under Section 106 of the Act to secure those sites, and for that all to be part and parcel of this approval. What we're saying to you as officers is we don't think that's necessary. So we are happy about the sustainability credentials of the site, and even if people who live at this property do have cars, what they are provided through the parking beat surveys, they have demonstrated that notwithstanding St John's car park, that there is capacity within the street network surrounding the site. And in addition to that, they also have the opportunity at the moment of using that public car park for which there is no charge. So one of the tests of having a Section 106 agreement is it has to be necessary to make the development acceptable. our advice to you as officers is we don't think that it is necessary to have that reserved car parking in the car park for this site, and therefore we would say it would fall on that test to impose that responsibility on the applicant to have those spaces.
Thank you, Alex. Any, Scott again?
Thank you, Chair. I did propose that we remove conditions 6 and 7 to allow that on-site parking. I was just wondering if you could consider that and whether I could have a seconder.
Yeah. Okay.
If we can offer some advice on that point. So you're going to vote on that motion. It's completely within members' gift to vote however you wish to on that motion to amend it in relation to those conditions. So what we've just been doing here is checking what highways officers have commented. On this specific application, they have not gone into detail about the safety or otherwise of the car parking on plot because there was no on-plot parking proposed as part of this application. It's been taken away. So if we go back to the previous application where there was parking proposed on plot, the local highway authority actively resists applications on the grounds of highway safety and the likely obstruction of traffic taking place on a principal road whilst a vehicle sits stationary in a carriageway waiting to turn into the site against oncoming traffic. So all I'd highlight to you is that we've gone through some of the basically there's a yin and a yang, isn't there? So there's the provision of this informal on-plot parking. Our argument to the officers is it's not necessary. And by allowing that informal on-plot parking, you are allowing for a risk to highway safety for those people using not only the highway, those people exiting from the roundabout, but also pedestrians, because as we've highlighted, this is a pedestrian crossing point, and as part of your separate conversation is about making sure that pedestrian crossing point is safeguarded and retained. So by taking away those restrictive conditions, you'd be allowing for cars to drive across that curb and that footpath at a point where people are looking to cross the road. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alex. Jonathan?
Okay, so with regards to what you've just said with the parking, now, because there's an island in between both lanes, the left-hand side and the right-hand side, if you're coming from the top end of Wellingborough Road and going all the way down, you can't turn right to go across. You would have to go all the way around the roundabout, turn round and come back on yourself, which to me, that's not, you're obviously not going over the central reservation that's there, are you? What you would do is you would then drive into Wellingborough Road, indicate to go left, stop and look, which you would look anyway. There is the house next along from that has also got a drop curb, so they would have to follow exactly the same principle, indicate, stop and look. So I find it very hard to understand why 20 metres prior to the next house, that's not a possible option. I find it hard to comprehend that.
So that's the point for you to consider as a committee. So we've set out the concerns we have as officers and our position. I'm not a highways engineer, so I can't give you a more scientific answer. I've just sort of set out the planning balance as I see it. Thank you, Chair.
Paul?
Yeah, sorry. So I'm looking at this picture of the actual area, and we have a cyclist going along here, which is all very good. He's on the actual pavement part. There's a section between that cyclist and the proposed wall. What's going on there? Are people just going to park there? Can we stop that? Is it? No, the fence is going to be at the grass line.
That's where the boundary ends.
Boundary ends at the grass. So you've got this massive, great big pavement where you were likely to find half a dozen cars parked on there. How are we going to enforce that?
Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. So just for clarity, I think the image you're looking at on Google Maps with the fella cycling in front of the site, The site extends to just behind where he is. In fact, I'll share screen to show members. But yes, so essentially, it's not as much pavement as it looks like is available as part of the public highway to park on, but ultimately the council will rely on its traditional means of highways enforcement to stop people parking there. Thank you, Chair. I'll try and get that image up. Thanks.
Thanks, James. David?
Thank you, Chair. And at the risk of setting the cat among the pigeons, I'm still slightly at a loss on 7.5.6. It was noted that the previous application was partly refused on the basis that inadequate parking was proposed on the site. I'm just unsure as to the grounds of that refusal and whether, the fact that the applicant has subsequently proposed a car-free development is a response to that original declination of Planning Commission. So what were the criteria that application was refused on, and what was the Highways comment at that time?
Thank you, David. James?
Thank you, Chair. I think the confusion has arisen because I may not have necessarily worded it in the most clear way possible. So the third reason for refusal from the previous application stated that the intensified use of the existing access, which would need to be widened, obviously in close proximity to the roundabout, would be unacceptable since it would have an unacceptable impact on the free flow and safety of traffic on the roundabout, contrary to policy 8 of the joint core strategy. I think that I suppose what I meant when I wrote the report is the arrangement overall was inadequate, not that there was an adequate number of spaces. So I appreciate that has caused some confusion, but the previous application wasn't refused because not enough spaces were proposed. It's because the overall arrangement was inadequate because of highway safety. So hopefully that clears that up, and I'm just working on sharing my screen for members. Right, so I shall just go to a photo of the site. So I'm just trying to find the clearest one I have of the... yes, here we go. So I think it's just taken a second to catch up. I'll just give it a minute. So I'll just try doing it again and see if it works. Yes, there we go. Apologies for that, members. So just for clarity, this is part of the site as well. This section of concrete here. So I'm afraid I don't have a photo of the entirety of the pavement in a photo, but it's quite clear in the plan that actually the area of pavement is obviously it's a wider part of the pavement, but it's not quite as substantial as it seems to sort of the casual observer on the street, because the frontage of the site does extend further forwards than it appears at present. I hope that clarifies matters. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Morris, did you want to say something? Darren?
Just out of curiosity, so when you've got refuge coming to the property, where is it going to stop?
James?
Thank you, Chair. I don't have those details specifically, so all I can do is sort of opine about what. Yes, but it would be the same as existing, therefore sort of no worsening overall. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. Paul?
Sorry, my main point is not how many, you don't think people can park a car there. I'll tell you, people will park there. That's not an issue. That goes without saying. What I'm saying is, how do we stop them if they do? That's it. That's the question.
James?
Thank you, Chair. Essentially, we'd have to rely on our traditional means of enforcement for people parking on the highway, and parking on the footpath and obstructing it. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Ben?
Thank you, Chair. We've just that piece of tarmac is within the boundary, though, correct? So, and we've already got a condition that says that the boundary treatment will be on the edge of the boundary, so that the wall will be on the edge of the footpath. So that piece of tarmac will be behind that wall. No, so it's not an issue.
Thanks, Ben. Morris.
Yeah. Well, if I'm looking at the Google Map image of the area, and right opposite on the other side of a roundabout, there's two cars parked opposite the pizza to go, and that's coming off a roundabout, and we're not enforcing it enough if they're able to park there.
Paul?
Can we have some kind of clarification of exactly where this wall's going? No, granted, the red line. What I'm saying is that at the lawn edge, the grass edge that we're seeing here, or is that?
Saying it's going to be at the tarmac edge, the dark tarmac. That's what they've said.
Well, no. Look where the lamppost is.
I know. Yeah, I can see that.
So it's going to be here.
May I interject, Chair?
James, yeah, carry on.
Sorry. Thank you, Chair. So there's an area of concrete, so where my pointer is, so across that line, there's currently an area of concrete there which has no enclosure. However, that's obviously to be enclosed as part of the application. So about half of this is currently tarmac and about half of it is just grass. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, James. Jonathan?
Yeah, so using that picture that's up on the screen is the end of the red boundary line going, yes, that's it, the opposite side, so as in next doors. You can see that little line there, so is that the end, the end of the plot for the property next door? Is that to scale? That's what I'm trying to get at. The reason why I'm asking is because if the boundary line ends where this darker tarmac ends, and that falls in line with the boundary line on that plan, then technically we could say that the property next door, that is that bit of grass there than the property next door's. So has that all been, do you see what I mean? I don't know how to explain what I'm trying to say. Because if you look at the boundary line as well next door to on the opposite side, you'll see that goes back and that falls in line with the picture for Mike Neville's boundary, you see. There's a fallback. But what you're saying, how you're explaining it, it's as if that all this grass in front of Mike Neville belongs to Mike Neville, which I'm assuming it doesn't because of that there. Then you're saying that this is the end of their boundary, but if that's the case, then this property that that's next door, then that grass, I'm assuming, is theirs because it falls in line with the lines on the boundary plan. Does that make sense? Sorry.
Alex?
Yeah. Let me start again. So what you have on the screen is the plan that's been put forward as the proposal. What we think that plan demonstrates is that the boundary line, so the plot ownership boundary line of this application, will have a 1.2 metre high brick, wall with railings erected on it to prevent cars coming onto the land. The concern that you seem to be raising is, where is that wall going to go in relation to other walls? And it would appear that the concern is, if the wall is set too far back, there will be land to the front of it that people may park on. The answer we gave some time ago is, it's our understanding and our interpretation of those plans that that wall will be set forward of that existing tarmac area for the reasons that James has set out in terms of the reference points that he has used. We are unable in this meeting to take scaled measurements from the system to give you exact dimensions from the frontage of the property to the back of the wall. However, with that slight level of uncertainty, what we need to consider is, what happens if the wall doesn't go where we're telling you it's going to go in this meeting? The worst case scenario is there will be a section of the tarmac area which is left unrestricted, i.e. in front of the wall and still next to the footpath. And that's where we're saying as officers, if there's that tarmac section left, which we do not believe there is, but if there were to be, then that would still not be accessible because of the proposal to reduce the size of the dropped curb. And where somebody parks on the footway or blocks the footway, there are separate powers, non-planning powers, but highways powers and police powers in certain circumstances to remove anybody who is blocking a footway. So we are satisfied that that plan demonstrates that the wall is going to the very front of the plot to prevent people driving on. And whatever land is not enclosed, we believe that there will be restrictions in place or powers in place to prevent that being used for the parking of cars.
Thank you, Alex.
Sorry. Paul? Just quickly, as the developer is here, could he not point out on the thing? Or is that too much to ask?
So it's up to you, Chair. I would say that section of the meeting has passed. You had the opportunity to ask the developer questions. The developer, in the same way as we as officers, is going to be interpreting that plan and giving their best possible advice. Our best advice as your officers is, we believe that line sits forward of where that tarmac area is.
Any more clarity questions or anything? No, we're all happy then, yeah? Okay.
Question.
Frank?
On point 756, it says that the applicant has submitted a parking survey which shows adequate capacity on nearby streets to accommodate cars from the site. What's that based on?
James?
Thank you, Chair. So this is based on the parking beat survey that was submitted as part of the application. So I won't sort of go over the whole methodology of it, but essentially at peak parking times, so in the early hours of the morning, the person conducting the beat survey drives around streets within approximately 200 metres of the site and assesses capacity. So it's this sort of empirical report that that is based on. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, James. Sorry, Scott.
I did propose that we remove conditions 6 and 7. I'd like to have a vote on that. Good.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Brown. I was going to say now, during the course of the debate, there were some proposals that were put on the table, and before members move to the vote, we do need to move a motion and have a seconder and vote on those proposals before we can take the final vote on the application for us. There were 2 proposals put on the table by members. One was, as Councillor Brown mentioned, to remove conditions 6 and 7. Earlier in the debate, there was also a motion by Councillor McLean, I believe, to reintroduce, because the motion before us was to remove condition 4, so reintroduce and alter condition 4 to, I believe, reduce the width of the drop curb to allow it to continue to operate as a pedestrian crossing. I would ask members, given the nature of both of those proposals, is there one which you would like to move and vote on first? Chair of...
Yeah, can I have a show of hands which motions you'd like to move on? The first one is for the drop curb.
Would you like to...
Sorry?
Do members wish to vote on the removal of condition 6 and 7 first, or the alteration to condition 4? Chair, I'm hearing that members would like to firstly move the motion to remove condition 6 and 7. So,
okay.
What would need to happen is that first a motion will need to be moved. You will need to ask for a seconder. Members will have an opportunity to debate on the motion before them and before moving to the vote on that proposal.
Can I move the vote and ask for a seconder, please? Motion, sorry, and ask for a seconder. Scott, thank you. Would you like to debate on that? Okay. Morris?
Going from what officers are saying, if we remove conditions 6 and 7, it's a safety risk. While I do think it's a good idea, but I'm split on that because of safety reasons to pedestrians and to local transport at the roundabout.
Ben?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, agreed. Although I think it would be nice to have adequate parking, I actually think it turns it into a free-for-all for parking. You potentially would have 4 or 5 cars parked in one little area, and I can imagine them all on top of each other, potentially.
Thank you, Ben. Scott?
I'd just like to refer to my previous comments regarding a lot of the objections to this from members of the public was in regards to no on-site parking. I think this would give that provision. I think there's plenty of room that their neighbours have parking, and I don't think they have much of an issue there, so I don't see why it would necessarily be an issue in this instance. Obviously, drivers are cautious and careful and mindful of pedestrians whenever they leave their homes, so I'm sure they will be in this case.
Thank you, Scott. David?
Just to add to that, Chair, if we are going to permit parking on this site, then I would be wanting, I'd reach out to the landlord once again to make sure that any parking on that site was managed in a proper and responsible way, as with other matters which we've already discussed, such as waste and all the rest of it. So it would be very much incumbent upon the operator's landlord of the site to make sure that parking is well organised and it is monitored to make sure that it continues to be well organised.
Thank you, David. James?
Yes, I'd just like to reiterate some of the points I made. We've got a parking beat survey that shows there is adequate parking to satisfy up to 9 occupants in this area. There is also the municipal parking, which I believe is free. It's a very sustainable location close to the town centre, so there's not a requirement to travel for shopping and things in a motor vehicle, and it's also close to public transport links. People can choose if they want a property which has off-road parking, and so they can go elsewhere if they don't need a car. Then they could move into this facility. I don't think we should be amending the plans in this way. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Morris?
If it remains an issue that people want to remove 6 and 7, maybe we should propose a visit to the site to be able to see the situation there and judge it properly under safety rules.
Thank you, Morris. Paul?
Yeah, pretty much. I concur with Morris. I can just see carnage. I can see 9 people trying to park cars in a place for 4, and what goes with it. I live in an area where this is an issue. I've seen it, I see it firsthand, I see it every day.
Thank you, Paul. No more questions? David?
A quick observation, if I may. I've just received some communication from Rushden Town Council that the tarmac at the front of the property is highways land. The grass next door is apparently highways verge. So I don't know if that makes any difference to how vehicles can be disposed of on that land, because it isn't the landlord's. But again, I think Morris made the perfectly fair point that we are probably arguing this without a great deal of direct knowledge. It would be interesting to see the site. It would also be interesting to see the actual proximity to the roundabout and how that traffic flows. So maybe it would be a good idea to defer the item for a site visit.
Okay, thank you very much, David. Dennis?
Yeah, one of the things about allowing parking there, there's 2 things. If there's 9 people in there and they had 9 cars, so then they'd be fighting about who's going to park there. Obviously, they may not all be working at the same time. And the other thing would be is, what's to stop the public from parking up on that bit then, when they're out shopping? Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. No more questions. Oh, Morris, yeah?
Can I propose the motion for a visit, please, if I can have a seconder?
If you can just vote on the motion that is on the table first, and then we can come back to that proposal, Councillor.
Okay.
Apologies.
Yeah, Chair, if we are deferring the item, surely anything that is on the table remains on the table until we come back to discuss it after any site visit. I only put that forward as a suggestion, but I think that's where we were coming from.
So, would you like to go for a vote on deferring it then?
Can we?
Yeah, rather than
Chair.
voting on the motion that was proposed.
Chair. Sorry, Chair. If we can just... So the proposal is being worked on about a deferment, but we do have as a council a site visit protocol. So if you allow us a couple of seconds, we can just clarify what the guidance for you as councillors is on site visit protocol.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Alex. Yes, Councillor, I'm just looking at the site visit protocol. If you just give me one moment, I'll be with you. It's pretty straightforward. Apologies, members. Apologies to the public watching on YouTube. We were just conferring about the protocol for site visits. Councillor Brown, as you proposed this motion for the removal of conditions 6 and 7, at the minute we have a motion that has been moved and seconded and debated, and right now it's hanging. So either we go to the vote on this condition, or Councillor Brown, you can make the decision to withdraw the motion.
Yeah, I'm happy to withdraw the motion.
Just to confirm, Councillor Brown has withdrawn the motion to remove conditions 6 and 7. I believe Councillor Eglin did propose a motion for a site visit to allow members to assess the site ultimately. In the same manner, we would have to move a motion for that site visit. It would need to be seconded. Members would have an opportunity to debate, and then members would go to the vote. Chair, Councillor, do you want to move the motion, Chair?
Yeah, I would like to move the motion for a visit, please.
Got a seconder? Thank you very much. Okay. So, would you like to debate the motion? You just want to go? Would you like, James?
Yeah, I don't see any reason that we need a site visit. I think we've gleaned plenty of information from what we've seen on Google Earth, and what I'm sure everybody in here can use Google Earth and the Street View facility on that to see the arrangement there. Thank you.
So, shall we just go straight for the vote? Sorry.
Apologies, Chair. I've just had some clarity from Dem Services Officer. The motion would be for a site visit and a deferral of the item to allow for the site visit to take place. Is that correct, Councillor?
Right. Shall we go for the vote then? Show of hands, please. For the motion. Can you use your cards, please? So we've got 6 for and against. Right. So that motion wasn't carried. That motion was lost. Okay. So,
as the motion has been lost, I'll come back to Councillor Brown. Councillor Brown, would you like to reintroduce your motion to remove conditions 6 and 7?
Yes, please, if I could. Propose to remove the conditions 6 and 7.
Okay. Can we have a seconder, please? Thank you. It's to remove 6 and 7. Right, would you like to debate motion, removing the motion 6 and 7? No debate? Okay, shall we go for the vote then? Show of cards, please. 4. So it's 4. 4 votes. 3, sorry. Okay. That's 3 for and against. Nine against. Okay. So that motion is lost. Would we like to go for the other amendment? Vote
yes,
for
so that motion has been lost. There was another proposal on the table put forward by Councillor McLean, which was... bear with me. So the substantive motion on the table was to grant planning permission in accordance with the recommendation in the officer's report with the removal of condition 4. The proposal that was put on the table was to reintroduce condition 4, reintroduce and alter condition 4 to reduce the width of the drop curb to allow it to continue to operate as a pedestrian crossing. The motion, Chair, I will give you the includes delegate authority.
Okay, so the motion that's proposed is to delegate authority to officers to reintroduce and alter condition 4 to reduce the width of the drop curb to allow it to continue to operate as a pedestrian crossing point. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. And do members want to debate this motion? Okay, so shall we go for the vote? Can I have a show of cards for? So that's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, that's 11, I think.
Oh, it's 11, sorry.
Yeah, okay.
1, 2, 11.
So we have 11 votes for, any against or any abstaining? Against 1. Okay, so that motion is carried.
So, Chair, that was for the reintroduction and alteration of condition 4. You may want to ask members if they want to continue to debate the substantive motion on the table before moving to the vote.
Would you like to carry on debate or shall we move to the vote? Move to the vote? Okay. Okay, so can I have a show of cards for the application? I'll make that 10. Is that 10? Right, so we have 10 votes for. Any against? 1 against. And any abstentions?
Hang on, it's Councillor Glenn just put up.
So that's 12 on the first vote for then, yeah? 11? Should we do it again, just for clarity? $11. For clarity, could we please vote for it again, please? 4. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 for, against, and any abstentions? So we have 11 for, 1 against, no abstentions. I say that vote is carried. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you, speakers, members of the public and officers for their attendance this evening. There's no other business, so I will close this meeting at